Hare Krishna. Yes, yes. Streaming live to Facebook on Bhakti Yoga Discussion Live. Today we're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 3, Chapter 4, and we are going to read text 23. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.4.23. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, Text 23. We'll do one word at a time. First, Sri Sukha Uvacha. Maybe three words at a time sometimes. Iti, Udavat, Upakarnya, Suridam, Dusasham, Vadam, Yanina, Asamayat, Sata, Stokam, Upatitam, Buddha. Now, in Sanskrit responsively. One line at a time. Sri Sukha Vacha. Iti Uddavad Upakarnya. Suridam Dusaham Vadam. Jnanena Samayakshata. Stokam Utpatitam Buddha. Sri Sukha Vacha. Ityudavad Upakarnya. Suridam Dusaham Vadam. Jnanena Samayakshata. Stokam Utpatitam Buddha. Sri Sukha Vacha. Ityudavad Upakarnya. Suridam Dusaham Vadam. Jnanena Samayakshata. Stokam Utpatitam Buddha.
Sri Sukha Uvacha. Ijudavadupakanya,
Ijudavadupakanya,
Suridam Dupasambhadam,
Suridam Dusahambadam,
Janena Samyaksata,
Janena Samayagvata,
Shokam Bhaktitam Buddha,
Sokam Upatidam Buddha.
Shri Shukavacha,
Shri Sukavaja,
Jadavadupakanya,
Vijudavadupakarnya,
Udam Dushahambadam,
Suridam Dusahambadam,
Janina Samayakshata,
Janena Samayagvata,
Sukam Utpatitam Buddha.
Slokam Utpatitam Buddha. Would anyone online like to chant the verse? We'll read translation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sri Sukadev Goswami said,
Shri Shukadev Goswami said,
okay,
oh, you're not.
let's do it. After hearing from Uddhava
After hearing from Uddhava
all about the annihilation
all about the annihilation
of his friends and relatives,
of friends and relatives,
the learned Vidura
the learning Vidura
pacified his overwhelming bereavement
pacified his overwhelming bereavement
by dint of his transcendental knowledge.
by dint of his transcendental knowledge.
Purport.
So,
I don't know if you're messing with me now.
really cool.
Okay. Vidura was informed that the result of the battle of Kurukshetra was the annihilation of his friends and relatives, as well as the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, and also the passing away of the Lord. All these hurled him into bereavement for the time being, but because he was highly advanced in transcendental knowledge, he was quite competent to pacify himself by enlightenment. As it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, due to our long association with bodily relationships, bereavement on account of the annihilation of friends and relatives is not at all astonishing, but one has to learn the art of subduing such bereavement with higher transcendental knowledge. The talks between Uddhava and Vidura on the topic of Krishna began at sunset, and Vidura was now further advanced in knowledge due to his association with Uddhava. Om Jnanatimmirandasya Gnanjanachulakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasai Bhutsa Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Prasarana Nirvasi Sasanyavadi Paschatya Desatarana. So I'm glad to be here. I'm here with Gajendra Prabhu and Mother Malini, and live in person and online we have Garuda Prabhu and Anasuya Devi Dasi and Rohini Devi Dasi, and maybe somebody on Facebook Live. And so this translation. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, after hearing from Uddhava all about the annihilation of his friends and relatives, the learned Vidura pacified his overwhelming bereavement by dint of his transcendental knowledge. So every time having a Bhagavatam class, it feels like a question is how much to talk about this setting the stage, because setting the stage each time could like go back and talk about so many different things. But for me, setting the stage, it was noteworthy that Sri Sukadev Goswami is saying this verse. This is the narrator speaking, and we haven't heard from him in a while. So I looked back, and it's like the beginning of chapter 2 is the last time that we've heard like Sri Sukadev Goswami said, or Sri Sukadev Goswami is speaking. So it's like 2 chapters ago, but that's like what, weeks or maybe months for us or something like that. And then Prabhupada mentions that these talks between Uddhava and Vidura on the topic of Krishna began at sunset. So it also gives some context of like, this is still the same day, like this conversation is happening starting at sunset, and now like the night's not over, they're not taking rest, yet. So it's getting late perhaps. But yeah, there's all taking course of just maybe a few hours or something, these couple of chapters. So this is this conversation between Uddhava and Vidura. Vidura was on pilgrimage, and he came into contact. He met Uddhava, and then Uddhava was coming from being with Lord Krishna before Lord Krishna departed the planet. So Uddhava was bringing news to Vidura of the disappearance of Lord Krishna and also the annihilation of all his friends and relatives, both in the Battle of Kurukshetra and the aftermath of the Battle of Kurukshetra. And so Vidura is like hearing this news, and so but it's not just the last few verses; it's the whole 2 chapters, up until now, because this, Sukadeva Goswami is coming in to narrate this part after these so many chapters. The last time that we heard from the beginning of chapter 2, when Sukadeva Goswami is narrating when it's like right when Vidura finishes asking his questions, questions by Vidura. There's a previous chapter to that. Chapter 1 is questions by Vidura, and then chapter 2 is remembrance of Lord Krishna. So it's like Sukadeva Goswami is narrating the transition from Vidura finishing asking his questions, and then before Uddhava starts to speak, and he's describing Uddhava's experience. Uddhava was at Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, when the great devotee Uddhava was asked by Vidura to speak on the messages of the dearest Lord Krishna, Uddhava was unable to answer immediately due to the excessive anxiety at the remembrance of the Lord. So he spends a few verses there describing Uddhava's internal experience and context of like his relationship with Krishna. And so now Sukadeva Goswami is coming in to narrate and describe about Vidura's experience, his internal experience, after hearing from Uddhava for these 2 chapters. So this current chapter is called Vidura Approaches Maitreya. So that's we're preparing for that. Preparing for Uddhava basically to suggest or send Vidura to go find Maitreya Rishi, because Maitreya Rishi was also there whenever Lord Krishna was delivering this intimate message and teachings to Uddhava. So Maitreya was also there. So he's so that's where we're going. That's where they're going next, is Vidura approaching Maitreya. And yeah, so I found so Srimad Bhagavatam, it can seem it's rather complex. There's different layers of conversations on top of different layers of conversations, and it can be rather complex. But at the same time, I know there's lots of movies and TV shows where they jump around the timeline and they flashbacks and things like that. So it's not within impossibility, to follow this. So you can imagine this is like. So we have this scene. We were just in the scene with Uddhava. Well, just a few verses ago, we were in the scene of Uddhava and Lord Krishna. Actually, that meeting with Maitreya Rishi was also there. Those conversations, but that was being narrated by Uddhava. So then, like, the scene changes back. So we did have a scene where it was Uddhava and Krishna and Maitreya Rishi, and then the scene changed, and then it was back to Vidura and Uddhava, having this conversation. They're meeting on pilgrimage. Sunset, so it's dark. The previous scene was Krishna was sitting underneath a tree with his leg on, his other leg, crossed leg, and speaking. Now, so then now the scene has changed again, and it is Sukadeva Goswami, and so we can remember that Sukadeva Goswami. The scene there is Sukadeva Goswami is having a conversation with Maharaj Pariksit, and there's many other sages assembled. It's on the banks of the Ganges.
Mm-hmm.
On the banks of the Ganges. And the Yamuna. That part of the Ganges is the Yamuna.
Mm-hmm.
Consider the Yamuna. There's something about a confluence of three.
No, I think it's next after Nepal, so it will be the Yamuna.
Okay.
Like in the Bhagavatam, it says the Ganges, and Ganges is the Yamuna.
Is it on the Yamuna? And so that's the scene. Like so, just jumping around, and so it's just like a flashback or a scene. Scene changes, and here Sukadeva Goswami is narrating this, and he will narrate a couple more verses coming up. And okay, so he steps into Sukadeva Goswami is describing Vidura's internal experience, which is that he was bereaved, he was experiencing bereavement. And then at the same time, or maybe there's a period of time passing, not sure. I'm going to have these are going to be making noises. Let's see if I can. So yeah, not clear exactly how long, but for a period of time, maybe it's instantaneous. He's experiencing bereavement, and then also he's pacifying his overwhelming bereavement. It's overwhelming bereavement, and he's pacifying it by the dint of his transcendental knowledge. So that's the situation. Is that Vidura has just heard some overwhelming information, overwhelming experience of the disappearance of Krishna, and annihilation of all his friends and relatives. So you can imagine annihilation of all your friends and relatives. So they can, use empathy to put yourself in Vidura's shoes. That the annihilation of all your friends and relatives, and then like what that experience would be like, and is described here as overwhelming bereavement. So bereavement is related mostly to death, but it doesn't need to be. A great loss, grieving is a grieving process, and I looked it up, researching that so we have accepted like bereavement leave, that it's expected. There's a period of time whenever there's a major death in your family or in you that you just don't go to work, even in America. It's not very long. You get 3 days or whatever. Other countries, there's certain rituals, there's certain time periods where you stay, so it's expected. It's expected that there's a certain period of bereavement, of grieving. There's different stages of grief. There's a book, the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. There's different stages of grief, commonly accepted, commonly known about, and so that's what. So it's expected that it's going to be a period of time. We use in Sappatova, we use the example of distinguishing between healthy emotion and grungy emotion. So like if we experience a death in the family close to us, and then it's natural to be sad and experiencing bereavement, but then like, okay, maybe 10 years later, if I'm still in these stages and I'm like so much that I can't function in life and then get out of bed or go to work or whatever it may be, then that would be like grungy, like might indicate some kind of grungy or not unhealthy emotion. So it's expected that there's some period of bereavement, of grief, whenever annihilation of friends and relatives. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, due to our long association with bodily relationships, bereavement on account of the annihilation of friends and relatives is not at all astonishing. So it's not like Prabhupada's suggesting that we shouldn't be feeling we shouldn't be feeling our feelings or experiencing our experience or having an experience, experiencing grief or attachment to family members. So that's clear. Like it's not that, you know, we talk about the illusion of transcendence or confusing ignorance with transcendence, popularly known as like spiritual bypassing, or maybe even also maybe more trendy now is like toxic positivity. Maybe more buzzworthy word. It's like just the person who's always just superficial positivity, or maybe jumping to pseudo-spiritual perspectives or philosophical perspectives, rather than like, and then of course it's kind of like negating or not validating, you know, your actual experience that someone's having. So, so Prabhupada is not advocating for that, and the Bhagavad Gita is not what's happening in the Bhagavad Gita either. You know, that Arjuna is experiencing his experience, and Arjuna is experiencing his experience and expressing it, and at the same time, it's not. Prabhupada says one has to learn the art of subduing such bereavement with higher transcendental knowledge. So it's not about, and in the translation it says pacified, asamayat, pacified himself, asamayat, pacified himself. So maybe pacification or pacifying, you know, now maybe that has a little bit of a different connotation. I know that, like when we had children, when we had small children, we still have children. We had small children, you know, it's common to have a pacifier. But then we had a different form. It was shaped differently, or maybe supposed to do a different experience than a normal traditional pacifier. And it was called a Susie. It was a Susie instead of a pacifier. And so that's like that term is kind of maybe to soothe oneself, self-soothe, or soothe oneself, or to something that's soothing has maybe a more appropriate connotation to this context now than like pacify has, because pacify can be like kind of like superficial, like just give me, just kind of be quiet, or you know, just like a superficial. There can be some connotation like that now. So, but we can look at this like the true essence of the word pacify is like peace. It's related with peace. To pacify is, the root word is peace. So to like make peaceful, to make like that. So to soothing. So to soothe. So he's Vidura is able to soothe himself, self-soothe. That's a I mean it's a very important skill. It's a very important ability to cultivate, ability to self-soothe, and that's, we want our children to learn to self-soothe, and but then as adults we also need to display that, and to so that can be like de-escalation. Another way of saying it is de-escalation. This is not talking about bereavement. I'm talking about maybe emotions more generally now, but yeah. So we want to be able to de-escalate ourselves, self-soothe ourselves, and pacify ourselves when there's strong emotions. And Prabhupada, the best way, maybe some kind of material pacification, that is like just putting the pacifier in the mouth. Go on Facebook or go watch a movie or go, drugs or whatever, sex, you name it. Just so that is like a material pacification. Just put the pacifier in the mouth and just suck on it and be quiet, whatever. But then like what I'm understanding is Prabhupada's talking about subduing such bereavement with higher transcendental knowledge. So, and Vidura's experiencing is overwhelming grief. But he's able to pacify himself. So we'll go on. Yeah. So, but Prabhupada mentions the Bhagavad Gita here. So what is that transcendental knowledge? What is that higher transcendental knowledge that can subdue such overwhelming bereavement? So we thought it's in Bhagavad Gita. It's in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is speaking directly. I'm going to go to chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. I didn't put, oh yeah, 2. So yeah, so just as, but also it's not, Arjuna is experiencing grief and emotion and strong emotion, and I'm not going to read all of his experience, but here's one experience that Arjuna is experiencing. Now I'm confused about my duty and has lost all composure because of weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me clearly what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to destroy it, even if I win an unrivaled kingdom on the earth with sovereignty like that of the demigods in heaven. And I shall not fight. And fell silent. So, so Arjuna's being an example for us. He's a pure devotee. Perhaps he's either Narayan or Narayan Rishi. Perhaps he's one of those personalities that we invoke before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna and Arjuna, supermost human beings. Arjuna's supermost human being. So he's enacting a pastime for our benefit, and so we can see ourselves in Arjuna. It's recommended to put ourselves in Arjuna's shoes, and it's for the common man. Prabhupada said Bhagavad Gita is for the common man, for everyone to understand this relationship between Arjuna and Krishna. So, it's kind of like what Arjuna is talking about is kind of like maybe material pacification. What could be, well, if he had an unrivaled kingdom and sovereignty, but that still wouldn't drive away this grief. So it's still not pacifying and subduing this overwhelming grief. So what is that knowledge which would drive away that grief? And so Krishna is speaking out. Let's read some translations of Krishna speaking. So you can just listen to Krishna, and if you're experiencing any kind of bereavement or grief or strong emotion, or you can bring to your mind, you can make it an exercise, bring to your mind something that you're experiencing, some grief or bereavement, or maybe you're in these stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, maybe not to acceptance yet, and you're experiencing some strong emotion. It may be grungy, maybe toxic, maybe it's natural, maybe it's a natural experience. So Krishna says, the Blessed Lord said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent there is no endurance, and of the existent there is no cessation. The seers have concluded by studying the nature of both. Know that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. Only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. He who thinks that the living entity is the slayer or that he is slain does not understand. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays not nor is slain. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been, does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, immutable, kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor can he be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. This individual soul is unbreakable, insoluble, and can neither be burned nor dried. He is everlasting, all-pervading, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. If, however, you think that the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, O mighty arm. For one who has taken his birth, death is certain. And for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. I'll read that again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body is eternal and can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any creature. Stop there. It's kind of a rather arbitrary place to stop, but I'll stop there. So this, so in the purport, Prabhupada says that, oops, I lost it for you. So this is the Yeah, Vidura, he was hurled into bereavement, into overwhelming grief for the time being, but because he was highly advanced in transcendental knowledge, he was competent to pacify himself by enlightenment. So that's another nice phrase there, to pacify by enlightenment. So it's not ignorance, pretending, pretending or avoiding internet or just pretending it's not there, avoiding the elephant in the room, whatever we say, like, just it's not ignorance, it's enlightenment, and true enlightenment is enlightening, so it lightens the load, lightens the burden, lightens the. So this transcendental knowledge, which we just read from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna imparting transcendental knowledge. My experience is hearing, I do feel enlightened after hearing from Krishna, especially those verses, and whatever grief or feelings I may have, definitely pacified and soothed and burdened. So there's a process. There's a process that can work when we're to do exactly what Prabhupada's saying. That's hearing from authority, Krishna, the ultimate authority. Also hearing from Prabhupada in his books, and I think that was about all that I wanted to share. Pacify himself by enlightenment. There might have been one more thing, but I'm not remembering it right now. Okay, I'll read the verse again. Sri Sukha Vacha Ijudavarupakarnya Suridam Dushaham Vadam Yanena Samayak Sata Sokam Utpatitam Buddha. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, after hearing from Uddhava all about the annihilation of his friends and relatives, the learned Vidura pacified his overwhelming bereavement by dint of his transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Any comments or questions or sharings? I'd love to hear what was your experience of hearing from Krishna directly, those verses. Anyone like to share about that or anything else? Devin's joined us here. There's no hands raised online. Gajendra Prabhu.
My share would be, for me, I'm appreciating because I happen to be hearing the Uddhava Gita this morning, more based out of the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, but this is sort of referencing that. Krishna's, speaking and they're having this conversation, appreciating how much it all connects to Bhagavad Gita and just how all these things are connecting together. I guess why it's Srimad Bhagavatam is the Bhagavad Purana. There's a lot of history involved that connects. But the part that I'm sort of being, that attracted me to think about is, this sort of ultimate pacification through transcendental knowledge. You talked about sort of pacifying, sort of, that like make peace. Yeah, that's what it is. Like even politically, like pacifists, they want peace. So this pacification is about peace. And on a more householder level, kids screaming and crying, or baby especially, you want to pacify. And literally, there's that thing you mentioned called the pacifier. And so I was looking at, is there a question of something being sort of real or artificial? Like using the baby, for example. There's the mother's actual breast with breast milk, but the kid's taking the pacifiers. If it was, and it's kind of an artificial thing. So there is a certain pacification, but ultimately that's not going to sort of eternally pacify the kid. We have to have that thing that is real and full. And when it comes to, knowledge, or wanting to feel absolute knowledge or absolute, pacification, we have to have something at that level.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be like the full truth, because even maybe somebody's having some, mental or some issue, and they might hear something, can sort of pacify them, but they'll think about it some more, and the extent of the issue is there. So, for me, the knowledge that we're getting is that kind of knowledge. It's not meant to address our issues that need pacification on some temporary or conditional or partial, but like this is really the ultimate fundamental knowledge that if you really get this, like you could be good to go for all eternity if you really get that. So I was just looking at, again, just to sort of recount, looking at that, is it about real and artificial? Maybe a little bit, but it's about, I think, degree and completeness.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel like whatever I was endeavoring to express, I feel like I understand what I was trying to express better, hearing your sharing about it. And then, yes, you're like, the complete knowledge, like it's maybe we hear something that has some truth in it, and that can be pacifying, to a certain extent. And then there's like, the supreme absolute truth, and that's going to be like that's complete truth, then it's completely satisfying. And there's a potential for it to be eternally completely satisfying. Of course, we need to be like Vidor, like these devotees that are remembering, they have a desire to be purified, to be in association with Krishna, and that eagerness. What is Bhaktivinoda? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says greed. Is that what is it? Volume? Well, no, like greed to be like with Krishna, to be in the spiritual world, like that. And so that's the ticket, it's the admission. It's like these devotees have that intensity of their attraction. So yeah, hearing the transcendental knowledge is one thing, and then continuing to hear it or integrating it or whatever. That's also one part. I think Sukadeva Goswami is narrating earlier in maybe chapter 2. He says Uddhava has completely assimilated transcendental knowledge, and that's another stage, right, for it to completely assimilate and integrate this transcendental knowledge. Would you like to share?
Thank you for your class. I really, when you read the purple, I was thinking, oh, there's so much what I want to hear. And I feel like, material pacification, regardless how intelligent it may be, sometimes it's really, really intelligent. Like governments to pacify the people when they are angry about something, or like Gajana was saying, it's going to be temporary. It's not going to work. And like what I experienced with myself is that I tend to go and pacify myself with Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam and transcendental knowledge and trying to enlighten myself. And I really appreciate it. I love those series of verses that you read. It feels that we should hear them every day, every single day. And but what I found is that it does work, but I also found it's temporary in a different way. Like the material temporal pacification, it seems that it's just put a boundary on the pain somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so pacifying, you know, the baby has colic, you put pacifier, the colic doesn't go away.
Mm.
So with the transcendental or enlightenment, it's also pacifying, I would like to say. And in my, you know, in my experience, I also, you know, like because of my conditioning, because of my lack of being enlightened or like Indura, you know, on the pure transcendental platform, I also feel like it's also temporary
Yeah.
in the sense that, yeah, it elevating one to a platform of transcendence,
Yeah.
but then because we don't stay there, as long as we are not pure devotee, only the pure devotee stays there, but we tend to fall
Yeah.
and fall again and fall again and fall again, and I can fall. Then when I fall, it's just, I know I can pacify myself there, but when I fall, I just don't know how to deal with the human experience anymore. No. So that human experience is there, and of course, you know, as I practice the enlightenment, pacifying, it seems that it does burn the karma more, because the material pacifying doesn't burn anything, so it kind of stands that platform. It seems that it burns the karma, so when I go back down, because of the temporality of my ability to stay on that platform, it is there, but still it seems that there is layers of karma that are kind of cleared up.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I was trying to go towards that direction, Charles, because yeah, like, okay, be like Vidura, who's, yeah, Uddhava completely assimilated the transcendental knowledge, and then like you're sharing with them on like your experience, and then all of our experience, I think, is that, yeah, I feel transcendental hearing from those verses from Krishna. I'm on the transcendental platform. I've experienced that in this moment, and then, and again, I'm enlightened and not experiencing any bereavement and, you know, everything. And then, okay, but then like fall back down. And then, so your experience is that, so it's philosophically, it's eternal. It has the potential to be eternally pacifying, but then practical experience is that, well, it's temporary because I'm falling down and like that. And then I also hear that whenever you, and then you put your experiences, um, as practicing going to transcendental pacification, and then whenever you do have fall down, come off that platform, then maybe it's more difficult to relate on the human experience, and at the same time you notice that there's more karma. But feeling like it's a better pacification for sure, because the karma burning your experience is changing, but still there's like some challenge on the human level. I don't have anything to say about that, but that's what I heard you say.
You don't have to say, I'm waiting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, that's what I was speaking about. It gets fuzzy. It gets fuzzy for me going to that place of, yeah, like, Uddhava, Vidura, and pure devotees, uh, and their experience. And then, yeah, we're just struggling to stay afloat. Yeah, I don't have anything to share about that.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. I could speculate something, but I don't
Okay,
really
go
have
ahead.
any. No. No.
A little simple comment. Also, I looked at a little bit, and this isn't really complicated or anything, but you have to look at was, so we got, so like a bereavement, and sort of, what's appropriate versus maybe what's extreme one way or the other. Exactly what this verse is about, that it's like, that you kind of mentioned it, and you only use the word appropriate, but there's probably some healthy spiritual level of, acknowledging these losses or these changes that is proper and right and in line with Krishna consciousness. Then you can have this sort of like, oh, someone's just so lost in bereavement and grief, like 20 years later, they're still in counseling and their life is like, they just can't let go of something, accept something. Then on the other hand, you can just have people that are so impersonal and uncaring and disconnected, like they just don't care about the grief or any tragedy, or like, yeah, Mom's wife died today, Mom died, yeah, whatever. So you want to go to the movie? It's just like, well, what is that too? I mean, at some level, there's I think, conscious level of appropriateness, and I've kind of almost seen it both ways, not to that extreme, but like, someone's died in someone's life, and years later, they're just still consumed. And I've also seen like tragedy happen, and just people just totally not care. And it's just like, weird.
Yeah, I think maybe that somehow could respond to what you were sharing about Melanie. But I do, hearing you sharing, I remembered a couple of things I wanted to mention is, I think it relates to that, is that I just was reading maybe a letter or something, like past time, that Prabhupada received an aerogram. I had to look that up to see what it was. It's not a telegram, it's an aerogram, so it actually came through the airmail back in the history. And it was from India. So the devotees knew it was from India, so they were really excited, like, this is really special. This came from India, and I think it was before, I don't know when it was.
An aerogram is I sent some, so it's like, it's not, you don't put the letter in an envelope. It's like the envelope is the letter.
It's like folded up.
Do you remember? Yeah.
Like a postcard almost. But
no, it's closed.
Yeah,
it's
it
closed
is like the envelope is the letter.
It's sealed.
Yeah.
So we have a history lesson here on an aerogram.
Yeah, because that's
yeah, so it was go by the air. So it was coming from India, so the devotees were very excited. This must be really important. This must be really special. This is coming from India, and maybe they knew it wasn't coming from like another ISKCON center or something. It was like something from India, important. And but then Prabhupada wasn't like telling them what it was. And so then they asked me, Prabhupada, what was this from India? What was that? And he said, I think it was rather short. He said, oh, my sister died. She was a pure devotee. And it was like, he said something, and maybe there was a little bit more to it, they said, but my sister died, she was a pure devotee, something like that. And that was it. And he didn't like have much, experience in this, so it was there. They were taking it like, seeing how like the transcendental knowledge, so that's one thing that reminded me of. And so, and then it's not really related to what you were saying, but just something I wanted to mention while I was thinking about this class is that actually I heard Rohini went to Mother Ratneshwari in Nalini Kanta's, and she was doing service with them, so I heard it from Rohini. That was from, I think, Mother Ratneshwari, that she was remembering maybe Lord Nityananda's appearance day or something like that. And she was like, they were excited to hear like pastimes. I remember it was Balaram's appearance day or something like that.
It was Balaram's appearance day.
You want to tell the story?
Okay.
Yeah, we'll hear from Rohini.
Hare Krishna. So the story is, if I'm my recollection of things is not the strongest. So I'm giving you more of the essence of what was shared. But Nalini Kanta said that he told me he was on a morning walk with Prabhupada, and it was Balaram's appearance day, and Nalini Kanta was wondering how Balaram was conceived when Vasudev was imprisoned in one place, and Rohini. No, wait. He told me how to say the name. I guess Rohini, I think, was in another location.
Okay, I
And
remember he was asking, he said, was there a controversy or was there
no,
intrigue, controversy
no,
because
n-
his wife got pregnant, but he wasn't there. So he was asking, like, was there any controversy about that
no. He said, was there a scandal?
scandal?
And I think that's what he said. Now that you're saying that, I'm not sure. Now that you're saying those other things, I'm not sure. But and Prabhupada, he said Prabhupada was angry. Like he became, I don't know if he was, yeah, I guess he said Prabhupada was upset about his question, and said that essentially that well, this is the part where I'm not clear, because I think that Nalini Kanta Prabhu had shared what what he understood from Prabhupada, which is the Balaram, when in the spiritual world, conception can happen in the heart. It's like, and so it's like Nalini Kanta was going into his material mind, and that's not what actually, that's not what happened. So Prabhupada was upset because he said it's best not to think about how Balaram was conceived. Just, it's best not to think about that. Um, and so that was the story. And I guess, and then Mother Ratneshvari, just to complete the story, Mother Ratneshvari, she said that they were all very excited about Prabhupada's class, with him giving class about Balaram on his appearance day, and instead he gave a class on we are not this body. so what's that?
But most of his classes are like that. I listened to 4 classes on Bhaktisiddhanta Prasad, Bhakti-Thakur, and most of them were about if we are not this body and accepting spiritual master.
yeah. So that's the story.
Thank
Hare
you for
Krishna.
saying. Yes, I was like, so Prabhupada is, I was like that's a transcendental knowledge that we need that we really need to assimilate. That is like he's over and over, so it's like they're excited. Hear about these pastimes. Nalini Kanta's thinking about how how Balaram appeared with Rohini and Vasudev, and so he's like in those kind of pastimes. And Mother Registry wants to hear about the pastimes, and then Prabhupada's like, "You're not this body. That's what you need to understand on Balaram's appearance day." And so yeah, that's the transcendental knowledge of Prabhupada, like over and over and over and over and over again. He's really, and it's like, I get that experience of it's kind of like, all right, so 1 + 1 = 2, and then but somebody else is like, no, well, 1 + 1 = 3, and they just want to keep going on to like other calculations. It's like, well, look at this other thing, look at this exciting thing here. And Prabhupada's like, no, you missed it. 1 + 1 is 2. And it's like, well, no, look at this, like this calculation over here. Like, there's this exciting thing over here. But no, you missed it back here. You got to start over. You missed. What about algebra? And what about this secret esoteric system that nobody knows about? No, but you missed. No, you missed the first calculation. 1 + 1 = 2. Just over and over, like, no, you missed it. You got to go back. You're trying to go somewhere else and you missed it. You got to go back. That was like kind of the image. Whenever I heard Rohini show that past time, I was like thinking like that. It was just kind of like, no. Stop. You got to go back. You got to start over. Like, anyway, that was the image I was getting, like the teacher, just, no, you missed it.
I'm pretty sure according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, said 1 + 1 = 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is that?
Correct.
Yeah. That's my best example. So anyway, that was, the transcendental knowledge.
-1 too.
Yeah. But I'll get a 1 + 1 = 2.
1.
Yeah.
Krishna was 1. I saw something that Prabhupada said, if we subtract Krishna, everything is 0. If you subtract Krishna, everything is 0. I got closed with, I have a couple of excerpts from, just for fun, from Queen Kunti that we were reading that are very short, and just to close class, they're very, very nice. They're not related to what we were talking about, but I just remembered that about if we subtract Krishna, we get 0. We all have consciousness, but what is this consciousness? It is Krishna consciousness. We have forgotten Krishna, and therefore we simply say consciousness. But really, consciousness means Krishna consciousness, because without Krishna, we cannot have consciousness. Without the sun, how can there be sunshine? Therefore, we say sunshine and not just shine. Similarly, consciousness means Krishna consciousness.
Jai.
Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
We don't say shot, no?
It's sunshine. It's not just shine. Sunshine.
Jai.